Welcome back. Continue their road swing before heading home to take on the Cleveland Indians this weekend. There have been schedule changes, weather issues, and just incredibly poor offense right now. Luke joins us live from Pennsylvania, where he has been monitoring all things Tigers. Just a little reminder, the Orioles have moved their game start on Wednesday to a 1:10 game time. It was supposed to be a night game. Thursday is a day game and was scheduled as such. Luke joins us now to say, well, at least if the beatings are to continue, at least they'll happen in broad daylight, Luke.
Yeah, and at least your evening will be free then to move past that and then do whatever you want to do.
Hate on the Penguins or the Flyers or both of them or something like that.
Or enjoy the NBA playoffs or whatever you want to do to try to get your mind off a 5-12 start for the Orioles. I mean, we've been talking about this over and over. I mean, going into this season, there were clear concerns about the pitching. It's not as though the pitching's been great by any means. They've certainly had their issues there. I don't want to make it sound like their pitching's been fine, but, man, you just see how this offense has not performed day in and day out. And the amazing stat, I was looking at it because we've talked about the fact that the Orioles have struck out a lot. They've led the major leagues in strikeouts through this point in the season by a fairly wide margin. And you know me, I'm more of a new age, sabermetrically inclined kind of a baseball fan where they basically tell you strikeouts aren't as bad as maybe they were viewed 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago.
Let's say in the Kingman-Reggie Jackson era,
right.
The Bobby Bonds era, not even the Barry Bonds era.
But
right?
It's always been to a point. It's always been that, okay, you'll take 195 strikeouts from Chris Davis if he's going to hit 46 home runs. When you look at this Orioles team, through 17 games this season, they have exactly one game where they've registered more hits than strikeouts. One time in 17 games, they've had more hits than strikeouts. Now, I think they have 2 or 3 other games where they have the same number of hits as strikeouts.
Well, let's go through the history of Major League Baseball, and this is where you get real nerdy and Jason Stark gets real nerdy. How many times in the Orioles' history, in the history of the franchise since 1954, has that happened 16 out of 17 nights? I mean,
I would venture to guess that's the first time that's happened, I would think. Right now, and we're 17 games in, they are going to swing the bats better at some point. That doesn't mean it's going to be a good offense. Don't misconstrue. But they are going to play better at some point. They're not going to continue to have this many guys hitting below the Mendoza line. And really, I mean, they've had 3 players who've hit the ball consistently. Mancini, Manny Machado, and Pedro Alvarez. Beyond that, it's been poor to below replacement level, don't belong in the major leagues, terrible, the kind of performances from these guys. But right now they're on pace to set a major league record. I think Milwaukee set the major league record last year off the top of my head. I remember reading that recently. And right now they're in that territory to break that. But even worse than that, I mean, it's one thing to strike out a lot, but this team's averaging 3 runs a game. You're not going to win games like that. I mean, even if you're a team that is the cream of the crop from a pitching standpoint, at best, if you're scoring three runs a game, you're hoping to be 500-ish. I mean, you got to score. You have to be in that 4.5 run territory at the very least. I mean, that's still not a great offense, and the Orioles have fallen woefully short of that. And on Tuesday night, they wasted a good pitching performance from Andrew Kashner, which, other than his debut where he had a rough go of it against the Twins, he's been really, really good. So I really don't know what to say at this point. I think I even shot you a text late as the game was coming to an end or right after the game, and it really is bordering on astonishing how bad this offense has been. I mean, they've had their issues elsewhere. I mean, the pitching, as I mentioned, hasn't been great. They've had plenty of issues with Tillman, and Alex Cobb really struggled his first time out. The bullpen hasn't been particularly good other than the Yankees series. And the defense has had its leaks, and even more than leaks. The defense has been bad. So other than that, everything's fine, right? I mean, if they could just figure out a way to clone Dylan Bundy and Andrew Kashner and clone Trey Mancini and Manny Machado, I think they'd be fine. But, well, I don't see anything like that happening anytime soon.
All right, well, let's back up on the hitting, and I'll get back to that in a minute because that's the obvious thing. But Kashner took the hill again, and Boy, he channels Rick Sutcliffe. I mean, every fifth day, and I know you were a kid at that point, but probably an impressionable kid when you were 9 or 10 or 11 years old, and probably doing wiffle ball bats and, and doing the stances of your favorite player and, whatever. Boy, his body language on the hill with Sutcliffe, the way he turns his body, the way his body sort of looks, the way his leg kick sort of stays low, the way the beard comes. I mean, literally, I know it's been 26 years since Sutcliffe went 2 hours and 4 minutes against Paul Sorrento and the Indians to do a little Camden Yards lore there. I know you like that sort of thing when I drop that in, but he does look like Sutcliffe, and 6 innings, 7 hits, and 3 runs. I mean, most nights in the American League, in the American League East, with a beer league softball lineup, you'd like to think that that'll be good enough from Cashner. That, was good enough in Texas on many occasions last year. I'm not down on Cashner. I'm not even down on Cobb. I'm more down on the organization for starting him before it looked like he was ready to go. But Cashner's been, okay. I mean, okay enough for sure.
I think he's been better than okay. I think he's been really good. He's got a 3 ERA. I mean, he's... like I said, he wasn't great against the Twins.
The first time out, that's what I'm thinking about.
Right,
that's why he hasn't been great.
Hey, I mean, even the best pitchers in the league aren't going to be great every time out. He has exceeded my expectations, and again, we're talking 4 starts into the season, but he's missed bats. I mean, remember, there was so much talk about his strikeout rate last year, and rightfully so when you have a strikeout rate plummet as much as his did last year. But, he's been in that neighborhood of striking out, 7.7, 7.8 per 9 innings, somewhere in that territory off the top of my head. I mean, that's more than good enough. His strikeout rate so far this season, 7.9 Ks per 9 innings. I mean, that's not Chris Sale by any stretch of the imagination. That's not Dylan Bundy, but it's good enough.
For what they paid, they're getting their money's worth for now, right?
He's missed bats. He's done a really good job in that regard. The walks have been a little bit higher than you'd like to see, but certainly not in the Ubaldo Jimenez, Wade Miley kind of range. So I've been really pleased with Andrew Cashner. He's given them everything the Orioles could have reasonably expected. And I was not a big fan of this signing, but Andrew Cashner has been the least of their problems. He's been really, really good for them, and he's given them a good chance to win. It wasn't a dominant outing on Tuesday night. I mean, 3 runs in 6 innings. That's a 4.5 ERA. That's not anything special, but as you pointed out, that should be more than good enough to keep your team in the game and give your team a good chance to win more often than not. But again, when you're scoring 2-3 runs a game on a nightly basis, it makes things very difficult. So, you feel for him. We've talked about Bundy being winless. Cashner did have the 1 win against the Yankees, and I'm not a big pitcher wins guy as far as that judging performance, and I think this is a great example of it. He fell to 1-2, but this guy could easily be 2-1 or 3-1. That's how well he's pitched so far. So, of all their issues, Andrew Cashner has not been one. He's been one of their biggest strengths.
Luke Jones joining us here. It is all brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank, a relentless commitment to being the best at everything they do. If you're in the business of business here in the Baltimore area, you need Howard Bank. Every person at Howard Bank is empowered to help you. Also brought to you by Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're downloading that app and using that when you're gassing up, using that when you're getting your fried chicken, your Western fries, maybe your smokes, maybe your coffee, maybe the Kona blend inside the Howard Bank mug. I'm not sure. Royal Farms is there for you, but when you're using that app, you're going to save money, going to be able to get some free Western fries, which always makes them taste better. Also, brought to you by our friends at buyatoyota.com. All of our content this week, and I go through all of our guest lists this week. It's been unbelievable. Don Banks from Patriots.com, Shereen Williams from PFT has joined us. Alex Marvez and I have talked draft as well as Andre the Giant. It's all in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. And if you want to listen live from anywhere in the world, download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. Our morning newspaper ships each and every morning to your email inbox. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It also includes the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel entries for the weekend. Big weekend going on down in Laurel this weekend with the Tessio. That is a stakes race. That is a prep for the Preakness. A lot of these horses will run in the Preakness. Of course, some horses prepping for the Kentucky Derby right now. My wife and I will be heading to the Derby down at Laurel on the 5th, so we're looking forward to a big month at Hi-Ho Pimlico as well in in May as the Preakness moves on the 19th. And on the 18th, of course, the Black Eyed Susie and the Pink. All of that information can now be found on the front of WNST.net and our Laurel entries. One more shout out for our fantastic sponsors at Costas Inn. Big fat crabs. It's getting to be that time of the year. Good enough for the day show. Good enough for my mom and Mother's Days and my mom's birthday many times down at Costas Inn. Cold beer, pit beef, bands on weekends, and the legend continues down at CostasInn.com. Luke Jones is continuing the legend of Orioles baseball, and our story here now being told in our 20th year at WNST monitoring Orioles baseball. And I don't know that this one's not getting off the tracks, Lucas. At 5 and 12, afternoon game on Wednesday, afternoon game on Thursday, and then they come home and see the Cleveland Indians, so it doesn't get any easier, but there is a homestand next week. I don't know how the weather's going to be or how the crowds are going to be. I know the kids will get in for free. I'm starting to wonder how they get back to 500. I listened to a portion of the game in the car. I heard Brian Roberts doing, some of this, and they were just thinking like a ball player. Like, if we could just get back to 500, well, you're starting to go about a dime underneath 500 at this point. That's where the clawing begins, and the way the Red Sox have started the season from a divisional standpoint, and I don't know if the Orioles are ever chasing that. They're always going to be chasing the wild card. But, 5 and 12 speaks for itself, and any of us who sat and watched this over the last couple of years, boy, this has all the earmarks of a bad baseball team. Starting pitching aside, when Cashner or Bundy go out there and give you a real chance to win, but kicking the ball around, we mentioned the strikeouts, and that's not the inherent problem. The problem is there's never anybody even on base. I mean, they only had runners in scoring position a handful of times on any given night. That's a problem, too. They didn't have ducks on the pond, man.